What I'm going to do today is, rather than tell you what you ought to own, tell you about what I own. Not saying that you should buy what I buy. Your circumstances are different than mine. Your preferences are different than mine. Your needs are different than mine. So I'm going to go through some of the exhibitors, the ones that are in my accounts or in accounts that I manage. And I'm going to talk to you very briefly, because there's too many of them, why I own them, if that's okay. We'll do it alphabetically. Aldebaran Resources. I own it because I've made a lot of money in the past with the CEO. Those are good people. I know some of the other shareholders. I like the deposit. I have a belief in deposits that could be big deposits. I don't like small deposits. I think big deposits can make you big money. Small deposits only make you small money, and big and small deposits both have big risks. I own Almadex Resources, again, because I know the CEO, I know the chairman, and I think the company is worth a substantial premium to what it's selling for. I can't tell you too much about the growth of the company, but I do know that they're a prospect generator, meaning that they use other people's money and don't have to dilute. I like the idea that I'm getting $12 or $15 million worth of value in a $5 or $6 million wrapper. A great exhibitor here is Altius Resources. I'm proud to say I think that I was shareholder number 5 of Altius Resources, way back when I was a young man. I've owned it for almost 30 years. It goes from absolute strength to absolute strength. Brian Dalton has become, in the 25 or 30 years that they've been public, one of the best asset allocators in the natural resource business. I just became, very recently, a shareholder of Amarc Resources. I've known Bob Dickinson, well, I've known him since I was in university. I'll let you guess how long that is. I love the potential of the new discovery here in BC, but it's certainly earlier and more speculative stage than most. I own Amerigo Resources. I've owned it for probably 20 years. They describe themselves as a copper factory. I think that's a wonderful description. They process a very large tailings deposit that was put in place by El Teniente. To put this in context, the remaining reserves and resources that they have are about the same as the gross reserves and resources of the Highland Valley in BC. This tailings deposit will be producing long after I've shed my mortal coil, probably producing as long as anybody in this room is left standing. Coming all the way down, now Dolly Varden Silver. I need to say I don't own as much as I used to, not because I dislike anything that the company's done, but because they've tripled. And so I've sold some money because they gave me more performance than I would have expected in a closer period of time. I still own it. I like the idea that the two deposits they control may join up, but at any rate, I like the fact that the mineralization that they have so far is indicative of the fact that there might be much more mineralization. Eagle Plains Resources and Eagle Royalty I own. These are prospect generators. Prospect generators, for those of you who don't know, are people who grow by using their technical and commercial acumen to develop exploration theses, and then they farm the project out and use other people's physical capital. This has been the single most successful exploration theme of my 50 years of experience in mineral exploration speculation. It takes patience, which most people don't have. Mercifully, I do. But using other people's money is simply the easiest way to leverage exploration growth without diluting yourself out of existence. People describe prospect generators as boring. At age 71, almost 72, I've decided that boredom is preferable to terror, which is what happens when companies become underfunded. Eagle Plains is a classic example of a prospect generator. I own Empress Royalty, a small royalty company, frankly subscale, but a company that's selling at a discount to what it's worth. It's very well run, and they have a durable competitive advantage in that they are associated with the Endeavour Financial Group, which have been mine financiers worldwide. The idea that they have access to the deal flow of Endeavour in a very small market cap is what I would suggest is their durable competitive advantage. And the royalty model has treated me extraordinarily well over 50 years. I'm attracted to the model, a business where your gross is your net, where you don't have to worry about sustaining capital investments or all-in sustaining costs, is, from my point of view, a very good model. I own Equinox Gold because I've known the founder of that company, Ross Beatty, for literally 50 years, in addition to being a serially successful human being. He's a close friend of mine. I know him. I trust him. The stock has been hammered, although it's done better the last 4 months. I like that. What the market says is that he will not be a success in Northern Ontario, building a mine which really stretched their balance sheet. I believe he will be a success. Time will tell. If I'm right, I think the stock is an 18-month double. If I'm wrong, I think the stock will be cut in half. I have never, ever, ever lost money betting on Ross Beatty and his team's faculties in this business, and I'm highly confident that I won't be wrong this time. I own Fireweed metals for a couple reasons. These are deposits that I knew well in my youth. They're gigantic deposits, world-class deposits, remote deposits. They're located fairly close to where Santa Claus is reputed to live in northern Canada. Importantly, the stewards behind these projects are the Lundin family, a family that I have done business with and invested with since 1974. 50 years of experience with this family. I'm on the third generation now. Big deposits, which I like. Great people, which I like too. Where am I here? Fortuna mining. I recently added Fortuna mining simply because I think it's oversold. There was a silver constituency around this company. It's gold dominant now. They specialize in deposits in jurisdictions that other people feel are gamey. Argentina, Colombia, West Africa. But from a financial point of view, the company is very strong. And on a net present value to enterprise value basis, I think that the company is cheap. My only criticism of Fortuna is that rather than having one really great big mine, they have a series of smaller mines, and my experience is twofold. It's easier to run 1 or 2 mines than it is 5, and small mines tend to make you small money as opposed to big money. I own GoGold. I think that they have camp scale potential, not a mine, but a camp. The stock is sold off because I think that people have expressed unnecessary pessimism with regards to Mexico. Let me rephrase that. Mexico is regarded as a risky jurisdiction, and in my experience, every jurisdiction in the world is risky. The question is, what do you pay to be persecuted politically? I think that the market is discounting political risk too much, and they aren't discounting political risk in other jurisdictions, say the United States and Canada, enough. So I own GoGold. I own it because I would rather take political risk personally than I would take technical risk. I own Gold Royalty because I'm a huge fan of the founder, Amir Adnani, who despite his young age I've known and done business with for 25 years. Superior human being. He's got a whole group of companies, and I trade those companies. Amir is a superb promoter, and sometimes the companies get ahead of themselves. And when he's been kind enough to do that for me, I sell them. And I wait until the furor engendered by his promotional acumen subsides, and I buy them back. Gold Royalty is one that has rewarded me well, and I think will reward you well. Hot Chile, horrible name. I mean, an absolutely horrible name. Great big deposit, well-located deposit on the coast of Chile, an interesting water resource that I don't know how to value. Great CEO. My only objection to this is that so far they don't have any high-grade starter pit. They have a sea of fairly low-grade copper, very large front-end capital expense that you'll have to amortize over a whole ocean of deposits. They need a high-grade starter pit so that they have quicker recoupment of capital. If they do that, and by the way, a wonderful place to look for a high-grade deposit is in a great big low-grade deposit, then that stock is really, truly off to the races. I really like the people. I know the chairman, Dr. Nicole Adshad, Nikki to me, very, very well. If you don't know her, you should get to know her. She's a superior human being. I own ISO Energy. I like the whole uranium space. Well, no, I don't like the whole uranium space. I like uranium. Most of the stocks in the uranium space don't have any uranium, which is unfortunate. ISO Uranium has an interesting discovery. I like the prospect for the uranium business in the next 5 years. ISO is run by good people. They have a very good deposit. I own Midland Exploration, prospect generators in the province of Quebec. I think Quebec and Saskatchewan are 2 of the finest mineral legislation jurisdictions in the world. Most of the world in the exploration business, the government punishes you In Quebec, the government subsidizes you. And while I feel a little dirty receiving subsidies, I would rather be supported than persecuted. And Quebec is one of those jurisdictions that does just that. I own nations royalty, despite the fact I think it's ahead of itself. I really like the people. And I really like the idea that indigenous people participate in their own wealth, not from the federal government, rather from their own volition. The idea that everybody acknowledges that the resources are theirs and that they have a private sector means of benefiting, rather than giving up the wealth in their land to Ottawa and then going and begging Ottawa for the money. The idea that they get it directly and the idea that they can facilitate transactions with the industry directly without having to go through Victoria, without having to go through Ottawa, I think is a wonderful sociological model, and I think it's a wonderful economic model. There's a young gentleman who works there, a tall tan named Cody Penner. I don't know if he's in the room. He'd be easy to find. He's about 6'49". At any rate, if you don't know Cody Penner, go to the booth and meet him. He's a future superstar. I own Osisko Gold Royalty. I've made a lot of money with the Osisko Group over time. Sean Rosen is a superior human being, first-class guy. Osisko Royalty, among the mid-cap royalties, is on an enterprise to net present value basis, the cheapest of the gold royalty companies in the mid-cap space, from my point of view. I own Regulus Resources, wonderful deposit, same CEO as Aldebaran, a guy who's made me a lot of money in the past, and a guy who's been really, really, really candid with me. When I've asked him about problems, as opposed to glossing them over, he says, no, those are real problems. That keeps me awake at night. Here's what I'm doing to try to ameliorate the risk, but I haven't ameliorated it yet. In other words, an honest human being, a person who normally when a promoter gives you a story, you know, the arithmetic is you take the story times 0.6 or 0.5, you cut the story in half. I found with John Black, you take the story times 1.3. I prefer that kind of arithmetic where you have to amplify the promoter's story as opposed to discount the promoter's story. And I think Regulus is one of those. I own Snowline Gold. I like things that are big deposits, particularly big deposits that I think are going to get bigger. And if I get a big deposit in a jurisdiction that I think looks favorably on that deposit, I'm attracted to that. The Yukon sold off in the aftermath of the Victoria Gold circumstance. And I don't think the Victoria Gold circumstance will have any intermediate term impact on permitting in the Yukon. So I love circumstances where there's a deposit that I like that gets clouded by a story that I think is irrelevant. Snowline went on sale after Victoria, and I think what happened in Victoria is absolutely irrelevant to Snowline, except for in the 2 or 3 or 4 month horizon. If you think like I do in the 5-month horizon, 5-year horizon, pardon me, what happened as a consequence of Victoria is a blessing. A great deposit went on sale for reasons that were absolutely, positively irrelevant, which I like. You know, it's funny, I'll go on a little tangent here. People normally buy consumer goods pretty well. Let's say winter's approaching and you go down to Pacific Center, you're looking for a coat. Over here, there's a store that says premium price goods, never a sale, you'll always pay too much, right? Over here, all goods down 50%. Where do you go? You go to the sale. Financial goods, people want to pay too much. It's really, really, really strange. The price of something goes up, and the fact that the price went up seems to verify the narrative. The idea that you verify a narrative after a stock has tripled means that the market performance of the stock has already obviated the narrative that you bought the stock for. So remember, if you really like something, the fact that it fell by half is a good thing. If nothing fundamental has changed, a stock that fell by half is twice as attractive. And that's what happened to Snowline. It's really tough to convince people of this. But believe me, after 50 years in this racket, it's absolutely positively true. I own Uranium Energy and Uranium Royalty. You know I like the uranium business. You know I like Amir Adnani because I told you so with Gold Royalty. Top quality people. Again, my objection is that these are a series of small deposits as opposed to one great big deposit. That's what's wrong with it. But the truth is the United States is going to be a very good place to be in the uranium business for the next 5 or 6 years. 4 or 5 years ago, as a uranium speculator in the United States, I was vilified. People said, you're trying to profit off Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Fukushima, 3 Mile Island. Then the price of uranium went up, and all my critics were saying, you got any stock tips for me? But it gets stranger. I mean, the official outlook in Washington 5 years ago was that uranium was horrible. In the Inflation Reduction Act, they decided to subsidize us. That will tell you something about the sea change of support. I think that the election of Trump, and by the way, I'm no fan of Trump, nor was I a fan of Biden, well, I think it'll do many bad things to the country. I think it'll do some wonderful, wonderful things for the uranium business in the United States, including, of course, these. And then finally on the list, I got through the V's, which is great. With some time left, I got through the V's. Vizsla silver is already a fairly profound deposit. I see sort of 300 million ounces there, and I see the probability that they add at least another 100 million ounces. High-grade ounces, the stock has suffered a bit because of the perception of political risk in Mexico. As I said earlier, I prefer to take political risk to technical risk, particularly if I think that that political risk is overblown. So I own them. I hope I've done a good job of giving you a 20-minute lightning tour of 22 companies that are exhibitors here. I'm not suggesting that you should buy all of them. I'm not suggesting that you buy any of them. What I'm suggesting is that you use the database I've given you in conjunction with the lessons that I hope you employ from the Rule classroom, and that this gives you a focus list to ask your questions about. When I say individual circumstances vary, it's very true. Your means are different than mine. Your perceptions are different than mine. Your patience, your risk tolerance, all those things are different than mine. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to portfolio construction. I can tell you how to select stocks, but you have to design your own portfolio to reflect your own prejudice and your own needs. So this is really, truly a guideline.